5. This was the hospital's 45th autopsy case in 2015. Steve's brain remained inside the bucket, in a storage area off the autopsy room, for 2 more weeks, to fix properly, as Hazrati puts it, for it to become firm enough to hold its shape for examination and to be cut easily. After those 2 weeks, Hazrati opened the bucket containing Steve's brain and began her examination. When Hazrati had first seen the brain, it was almost white, with spidery, pinkish-red blood vessels running along its surface. Now the brain was a gray-white color, with those pinkish-red lines turned red-brown because of the formalin, and its contours more obvious. Hazrati weighed the brain and checked her reading against the one in the coroner's report. 1,600 grams, about 3.5 pounds, an increase of 10%. This was to be expected because of the formalin that the brain had absorbed. Again, nothing was unusual. On a normal day, Hazrati might have 3 or 4 brains to cut, from deaths following cardiac surgeries, from general autopsies, from neurodegenerative cases. But on that day in 2015, she had 1, Steve's. She sees so few brains of young ones, as she puts it, those who are 40 years old or younger, but who during their lifetimes exhibited symptoms of those much older: memory loss, loss of emotional control, loss of cognitive function. Hazrati is rarely shocked by what she sees because she never anticipates what she will find. She is a scientist, and she must see only what is there. The organ is what gives you the most information, she says. You must let it tell the story. Still, a young brain like Steve's that looked so normal and healthy, but wasn't, was a surprise to her. This was a young person who shouldn't be dead now, she says. His brain should not have been on the autopsy table in front of her, in that small, spare, surgically clean room. As Hazrati puts it, brains like Steve's are very precious, and extra care must be taken. Not because they are from well-known athletes, but because these athletes have died so young, and because the disease these brains contain is so little understood that every glimpse into them matters. They are precious because, for researchers to discover what they haven't yet been able to, they need lots of brains in order to gauge differences, uncover similarities, and have new things to think about and new findings to share with other scientists. Researchers have examined brains affected by Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, and other neurodegenerative diseases for decades. They still don't know the causes of these diseases or how to cure them, but they have studied them enough to know there is a certain predictability to them. This is less so the case with CTE. It seems that the disease is related to blows to the head, but not limited to them. After all, even the most physically inactive among us have hit our heads hard many times in our lives. What is it about the brains of these athletes that are different? Hazrati laid Steve's brain on the stainless steel table and began to cut. Her knife was long and razor blade thin, sharp enough to slice through the full width and depth of the brain in one motion without tearing the tissue. Each cutting was about a ½ centimeter thick, a complete and smooth cross-section that captured all of the brain structures and allowed Hazrati to compare one side to the other. She then used a scalpel to cut the tissue into even smaller segments. The hospital's technicians will embed these segments into wax to protect them and make them easier to handle, then put them into cassettes and place them into a processor for a few days in a bath of xylene, chlorine, alcohol, and formalin. Other organs require less time to hydrate and fix, but a brain takes longer because of its high lipid or fat content. For Hazrati, this day was about seeing that the cuts were done properly and preparing them and ensuring that each was labeled accurately. There was nothing more that she could do at that moment. There was nothing more she could discover. Several days later, the next stage of cuttings began. The cuts were much finer this time, using a machine not much different than a sausage slicer, only smaller. 6 microns in depth, about 1/4 the thickness of letter paper, and so thin that color disappears from the cutting and everything becomes transparent to the naked eye.